At 17 years old, I was incredibly skinny. I was looking for a cure for my skinniness. I was trying to become big. So I scoured the internet, I looked everywhere, and the only thing I could really find was eat big to get big, bro. So I basically did that, and I bulked for the best part of 5 years. And I certainly got big. But the thing is, I also was pretty out of shape. And to be honest, I'm not even sure that I looked better at the end of it than I did before I started this humongous eating and gymming rampage. So what I did last year is I decided, let me maybe try a different approach here. And what I realized is that I'd essentially spent the best part of half a decade eating as much as possible just to get fat to build less muscle than I would have by having a six pack for half a decade. So if you're considering bulking, I'm going to give you 5 things that you should consider. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you what I would have done differently to build muscle as a skinny guy. So the very first thing that we should be considering is what actually is bulking. We need to actually understand what we're getting ourselves into here, because it's not as simple as just eat big to get big. The reality is you certainly will get big, but is big really what you're trying to go for here? What bulking essentially is eating in a calorie surplus, which means you're eating more calories than your body is using. The reason behind this, the reason why people theoretically think that you should bulk, is that if you're eating in a calorie surplus, then you're definitely getting in all the calories you need for your body to build muscle. The only problem with this, and this is a big problem, is that after your body has used all of the calories that it requires, its maintenance calories, all that excess, the surplus, your body can't actually use it. So what is it going to do? It has to store the excess energy. And where does it store it? Well, it stores it as fat. So essentially what you're doing is you're accumulating more and more and more fat for all of that calorie surplus. So over time, you're just going to keep getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And the reality is there is no difference in the amount of muscle you can build eating all the calories that are required to get you to maintenance, what your body is using, versus those excess calories. They're only getting stored as fat. So there is essentially no difference between eating maintenance calories and eating in a calorie surplus in terms of the amount of muscle you can build. You're certainly going to increase in size, like you're going to build a similar amount of muscle to eating maintenance calories. You're also going to gain a bit of fat. And because you have more body weight, you might be lifting more in the gym. So you may think, oh, look, I'm getting bigger, I'm getting stronger. But the reality is you've just added more body weight and you've added more body fat. So the second thing we need to consider here is now that you've bulked up, now that you've added all this mass, right? This muscle and this fat, then what? Are you just going to hover around 18, 20% body fat for the rest of your life? Well, for most of us, we probably want to be lean. We don't just want to have a lot of muscle. We also want to be lean. We want to have six-pack abs. You want to look insane, right? Unless you want to be like a rugby player or you want to be a power lifter or a strongman. Completely different kettle of fish here. But for the average person who's bulking just to try and look good, eventually you're going to have to cut. And why did we bulk in the first place? We bulked to make sure that we're getting enough calories for our body to actually use to build muscle. But what happens if we're trying to lose fat? We have to go on a calorie deficit. And what do we know about a calorie deficit? To be in a calorie deficit, you have to be eating less calories than your body uses. Now, what would that be? That would be a suboptimal environment for muscle growth. So because you've exceeded the amount of calories that your body uses to bulk, you now have to go in a calorie deficit to balance it out and bring that body weight down, which means that on average, you're in a suboptimal anabolic environment compared to just eating at maintenance calories. So not only have you just increased your body fat and looked worse to try and build more muscle, and in reality you've built identical muscle to what you would have built at maintenance calories, but you then have to cut at the end, which means you're putting yourself in a suboptimal muscle building environment, which means that on average, you're actually building less muscle than you would have at just eating maintenance calories. The third thing we need to consider here is what is happening to your face. No one talks about this, but considering the fact that a lot of us are bulking to try and build muscle to try and look good, what is actually happening to our overall appearance? And a big thing to consider here is your face. Because the reality is, if your face looks worse, then I'm sorry, but no matter how good your body looks, if you've made your face look worse, that's probably what most people are looking at anyway, you're going to overall look worse. And I'm a perfect example of this. I mean, when I was bulking, my face just ballooned out. I had a moon face and it looked shocking. Not to mention I had higher body fat percentage, so I didn't really have any visible abs and it didn't look great. But I looked like I had a moon face and I wasn't even that fat. Like, I'll put a picture on screen of what my face looked like, and you probably look at that and go, okay, he's probably like 20-25% body fat. It's like, no, I can kind of see some abs there. I'm probably like 18% body fat. But the thing is, it makes your face look so much worse. And if you're actually just trying to look good, then there's no point in bulking if overall your face is going to look worse and therefore you overall are going to look worse. Real quick, if you would like to get into peak mental and physical performance, I've left no stone unturned to give you everything that you could possibly need, including an entire course on how to build your dream physique. So if this is something that you're interested in, I'll leave a link in the description below. Fourth thing to consider here is what's actually happening to our hormone levels. As soon as you're going above about 15% body fat, you're starting to negatively affect your hormones. First of all, above 15% body fat is going to decrease your testosterone levels. And secondly, it's going to increase your estrogen levels. What do we know about bodybuilders? What do we know about people taking performance enhancing drugs? Well, a lot of them are taking testosterone. They're trying to increase their testosterone by taking exogenous testosterone. What else are they doing? They're taking estrogen blockers from preventing that superphysiological testosterone from aromatizing into estrogen. So they're trying to increase testosterone and they're trying to decrease estrogen levels. So why would we put ourselves in an environment where we're decreasing our testosterone and increasing our estrogen if we're trying to build as much muscle as possible? That is the complete opposite of what we're trying to do. Because at the end of the day, testosterone is an anabolic hormone. It is going to increase our ability to build muscle. And why would we try and decrease our testosterone levels if we're trying to build as much muscle as possible? So not only are you putting yourself in a suboptimal anabolic environment in terms of your hormones, but you're also forcing yourself to go into a calorie deficit because you've gained so much fat from the bulk that you've put yourself in another suboptimal anabolic environment. So on two fronts, you're decreasing your ability to build muscle, which makes absolutely no sense when the actual goal of bulking is to build muscle. Fifth thing to consider here is you're probably going to have worse energy levels and worse mental health. So first thing here is worse energy levels. When you're eating a whole lot of food, even if you're doing a clean bulk, eating mainly whole foods, your body's just digesting a whole lot of foods. And when there's a lot of food in your stomach that your body's digesting, it just makes you a little slower, a little more lethargic. You have a bit more brain fog. You're not really feeling your best. And then on the mental health side of things, if you're putting all this effort into the gym and all this effort into eating properly, yet you don't have a good physique because you've gained quite a bit of fat mass and you're not looking good around the face, you're not looking generally that good, then it's not going to be good for your mental health. It's probably going to make you less likely to stick with it. And at the end of the day, consistency is going to beat optimizing every day of the week. So worse energy levels, worse mental health, this is just going to have a lot of downstream consequences on our work, right? Your actual work output is going to suffer if you have brain fog, if you have poor mental clarity, and your mental health, if you're not feeling great, you just make worse decisions. You don't feel as good. No one wants to have worse mental health. So those are really 5 things that you should consider before you go into bulking. In my opinion, bulking is one of the dumbest things that a lot of people have just said is just total gospel. You just have to do it. You have to eat big to get big. The reality is it's probably the worst thing that you can do if you're trying to get in good shape. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So if I'm back in my 17-year-old body with my current brain, what am I doing? How am I building muscle? Well, the first thing to note is that you're already at a huge advantage. For a lot of people, the first place to start is to actually be lean. If you're around that 10 to 12%, even up to 15% body fat, right? This is going to be a good body fat percentage for your hormone levels, which is a good place to start because if you have good hormone levels, it's a better anabolic environment. From here, what I'm trying to do is figure out how many calories is my body using on a daily basis. Once I figure that out, I'm eating those calories every single day, right? I'm just eating maintenance calories. From there, I'm trying to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight because, as we know, Protein is the building block for building muscle, right? It is used to repair, restore, and grow your muscle tissue. So we want to make sure we have adequate protein. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is all you need. And then I would be resistance training. I would be trying to do some sort of weightlifting, be around 1 rep from failure for each of my sets. I want to train each body part about twice per week. I want to be getting at least 6 sets per body part. Just trying to build strength, trying to progressive overload, increase my strength week by week. And if I just kept doing that, you would be lean, you would be building muscle at the rate that your body actually builds rather than just accumulating all of this fat mass that you eventually have to cut down. And you just have to understand, right? This doesn't happen overnight. You can't just go from a skinny guy to absolutely jacked overnight. It does take time. And the issue is that we see people on the internet taking steroids and making crazy transformations. And we go, well, I'm not progressing that quickly, so I want some way to do this quicker. And we think bulking is the answer. But the reality is bulking is going to move the scales quicker. But in the long run, you're going to have to yo-yo. It's not going to be as good. You're not going to build as much muscle. You're going to have to start cutting. It's not a good way to be. Being patient is so important. But if we are eating a maintenance calories, we're getting our protein in, we're consistently training with resistance, trying to progressive overload and get stronger, you are going to build muscle. But you have to understand this actually takes time. This doesn't happen overnight. Don't fall into the trap of being one of those guys who take steroids or having unrealistic expectations. Understand that this will take time, but it is absolutely something that you can accomplish. That was it for today's video. I thought I have to get this out there because bulking was one of the biggest mistakes I made, and I don't want you guys to go through this exact same mistake. If you like this video, if you got some value out of it, maybe it's something that you hadn't heard before, then please like and subscribe. There's probably a video around here somewhere that you might be interested in, so I'll see you in one of those videos.